Open space, passive recreation, and sports and recreation are a high priority of the Medfield community and are reflected in the final plan. In this video, I interview Kevin Ryder, who is the director of Medfield's Park and Rec program. He talks about how the Medfield State Hospital property, the sledding hill, the large open spaces on the campus itself, the great lawn, the public space at the back, the access to the Charles River are all very important as a way of contributing to programs in Medfield and augmenting the Parks and Rec program that are here now. Another feature of this video is I discuss what is passive recreation, what it is, for example, hiking, walking, skiing, horseback riding, dog walking, and what it is not. And this is important because around the state hospital property, owned by the state, are large fields that are open for passive recreation only. And also it gives access to the enormous trails and properties that are around the property on all directions. And this becomes very important as a way of improving and contributing to the value of the Medfield State Hospital plan.
Yeah. We haven't talked too much about the Medfield State Hospital, but obviously because this is part of this series, we're interested. But leaving aside just the recreation center, which I know is being addressed by the buildings group here, just leaving that aside, how else could you see using the hospital grounds? The sledding hill, the river, the canoe launch site for expansions of the program?
Having walked the state hospital property a number of times, it's a beautiful, beautiful site. And just that passive recreation, going up there and seeing a number of people walking their dogs or just going for walks with their families around the property, I mean, that's been a huge benefit for the people in town to be able to take advantage of that. Being able to do programs on the Charles River, being able to take a kayak or canoe out there and learn to paddleboard, learn to kayak, programs that are successful elsewhere that we'd be able to do here because of that, that great addition to adding the boat launch there.
Yeah.
Anytime you can get out on the Charles River, and the views that we have here at the State Hospital of the Charles are phenomenal. And any opportunity that we'd be able to take advantage of that would be awesome.
And it's a beautiful stretch of the river through there.
Huge, beautiful stretch of that river, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be really exciting to have paddling, introducing kids to kayaking. And
not just kids, but adults too, that have never done it before, never had the opportunity to do it, and now you'd be able to offer that type of activity to adults right on down to kids and giving those people the opportunity to get on there. I think it would be a great expansion of some of the programs and offerings that we already do.
Let me go back to a point too that brings out too. How can you make Parks and Rec and sports programs applicable to all age groups, not just little kids, not just kids in grade school or up to, I don't know, grade 5 or 6, something like that, but expanded to all age groups, older kids, adults, seniors, in town?
One of the things we'd always love to do, and one of the things that we were able to do in Wellesley was offering pickup type basketball program for adults. One of the things I'm asked a lot of times by parents is, you guys do great things for my kids. My kids love coming to programs with Coach Kevin. They love coming to the soccer on Saturday. What about me? What can you do for me?
Right.
And the unfortunate thing is, with the lack of the space that we have available in Medfield because of the popularity of the programs at the schools with the sports teams there, our inability to be able to run an adult type program or even older kid program at the FAF Center, I'd love to have that opportunity to be able to say, Tuesday nights we're going to be able to do basketball at the rec center, or we're going to be able to do stand-up paddleboarding up at the Charles River. Anytime that you can incorporate, my idea or my goal for park and recreation is to be all-encompassing. We don't want to be looked at as we're just satisfying the need of 4th graders on down. We want to be going from the kids that are just walking all the way up to the senior citizens all the time, all inclusive, where we're hitting a lot of young kids, we're hitting some of the senior citizens with some of our fitness programs that we run, but we want to be all encompassing all throughout, and being able to do that here in Medfield is one of my it's my #1 goal to be able to make that happen here in Medfield, because I think the people in Medfield deserve it. I think recreation sports in Medfield is very popular, but it serves a big need for a lot of the kids growing up here in Medfield. I want to be able to have parents, families, kids be proud of the programs that they take here in Medfield. Not that they aren't now, but being able to say, well, I'm in 4th grade, so I'm no longer going to be taking park and rec programs. Or when a mom comes to me and says, it's so sad that Jimmy's not going to be able to come into any more programs of the FAP because he's too old. I want to have those kids, when they start, be growing up at a new recreation center or growing up on new playing fields in Medfield. And I think, you know, our goal being to bring that to the town. We want to be able to provide a park and rec program that people can be proud of, whether you're a 4-year-old or you're a 84-year-old. And we want that, be able to offer that for everybody as an all-inclusive type program.
So, can you briefly summarize the legislative and land use provisions for agriculture and passive recreation? What can and can't be done?
Yeah, that goes back a little bit, because when the town was negotiating the purchase of the hospital with DCAM, the state, one of the things that had to be done after the town approved it was to actually write the legislation that transferred the property, which was part of DCAM, to the town of Medfield, but also to other agencies. And I was on the legislative committee at that time. So in addition to helping guide the decision to purchase the land, I had a hand in writing the legislation. And part of it that I really was very insistent on is that the lands that are beside the core campus, so if you can visualize the layout, you have the core campus, which is about 94 acres, which is where all the buildings are.
Right.
But then on both sides, on the east side and on the west side, you have these large plots of land that are basically hayfields now.
Right.
We call those A1 and A2. A1 is to the east and A2 is to the west, or the river. And so we put in a provision in the legislation that said that those properties would be transferred to DCR, the Department of Conservation and Recreation. But there were very strict stipulations that those properties could only be used for 3 things. For open space, just leaving it open. Of course, there's a huge interest in that in town. For agriculture, and we'll get back, of course, in more detail about that, but for agricultural purposes, and then 3 for passive recreation. So they were restricted to those. Then after the legislation was passed by both sides of the legislature and then signed into law by Governor Patrick, then after that, a purchase and sale agreement called the Land Disposition Agreement, or LDA for initial, takes the provisions in the legislature and then puts them into detail, sort of like a purchase and sale agreement when you buy your house. And those provisions and those restrictions on those lands were put into the LDA. In addition, the property that we bought across the road, across Hospital Road, called the Sledding Hill, that's also agricultural land. In fact, we'll talk a little bit more about that, because that's where the farm was located, right in that area. And most of that area was also used for agriculture. And the LDA then stipulates that all of that has to stay as agriculture, except there's a provision that, kind of a carve out, that 12 acres is exempt from that and could be used for some type of development. That's to be determined yet. So that's sort of the history of the legislation.
And that 12 acres, does that have to then be designated somewhere else?
The 12 acres has to be offset. There's what they call a mitigation provision, so that the 12 acres had to be offset by other property in town, which it was. And that's an important part of the law in Massachusetts, that agricultural land has to be maintained or has to be mitigated. So if you take 12 acres out, you have to offset it by another 12 acres, and that was done with the HomeQuest property on the south section, south side of Medfield.
So let's talk a little bit about passive recreation. So can you explain what passive recreation is?
Yeah, that's very important for people to understand. If you read the state legislation, state laws, passive recreation is very clearly defined in there. And what it basically means, it's recreational activities, but that don't change the topology. In other words, you're not moving land around, you're not cutting new paths, you're leaving it as it is. That can't destroy or disturb the topology or the ecology. So you can't affect that. You can't cut trees down, that type of thing. And it can't involve motorized vehicles. So you can't have motorbikes or
Snowmobiles.
all-terrain vehicle, ATVs, or things like that on it. So that's kind of what it can't do. Right? But what it can do is be things like hiking, walking, dog walking, I guess, hiking, bicycling, mountain biking.
Yep.
It can be bird watching, which is going to be very interesting up there with the new gateway that's been opened up, and you already see,
it's a migratory path.
coming back. It's
is.
amazing
It's beautiful.
what it is. So I go up there quite a bit, and there's a lot of photographers that go up there now. I'm all the time bumping into photographers that are taking pictures of the river, or of the fields in the back, or the hospital itself. So it can be used for photography. Passive recreation could include cross-country skiing if we get snow this year.
Wonderful.
I know
Fun.
Mark is all
yeah.
interested in cross-country
Oh,
skiing,
yeah.
so you could
Loves
go up
that.
there. You could
And he
use
has been up there,
Yeah.
cross-country skiing.
horseback riding.
Yeah.
We use
Yeah.
it for the Norfolk Hunt Club, because it's got this amazing trail system all
Right.
throughout it. So it could be used for that. So it's that types of applications that are in passive recreation.
You have just watched one of 5 edited videos from past episodes of Our Town, Our Land, Our Future. We want to let you know that you can look forward to 2 brand new videos. The first one will talk about the rationale and the benefits of the final plan. The second will talk about what you can expect at special town meeting. For instance, you'll be voting on the zoning that will support the plan. As a way to stay in touch and informed as to what the Master Planning Committee is doing in this final stage, you can go to our Facebook page, we have a Twitter account, and we have a newsletter that goes out every week. So you can sign up for that through our Facebook or our website. Our website, www.mshvision.net, is a good resource. We hope you've enjoyed this video and the other videos in this series. Thank you.